Welcome to another edition of the Legacy Warriors podcast, where we cover the top two feeder promotions to the UFC, where it's either the LFA or Cage Warriors, which both have events going down this weekend. On this edition of the Legacy Warriors podcast, we'll be covering LFA 207, which actually goes down in about 2 hours. And if you guys have been following the channel for at least the last 7 days, you guys have known that I told you guys that this week will be a very busy week due to some personal matters. And it kind of caused me to be delayed in terms of researching some of these fights and waiting for the odds to come out and actually getting this content out to you guys. So I do appreciate your understanding in that regard. With that in mind, I will be very quick with these breakdowns because, again, the fights kick off in about 2 hours, probably be about an hour and a half by the time I get it uploaded to YouTube. So I'll be doing quick picks format for this card. There are 10 total fights, 9 of them being pro. Normally, there are no odds for the amateur fights, so I often overlook them and I don't bother with them. There were odds for the one on this weekend's card, but it seems to be a squash match anyway, so I ended up skipping it regardless. So we'll cover the 9 pro fights. Again, it kicks off 5:15 p.m. Eastern time on YouTube with the prelims, and then I believe 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time is the main card on Fight Pass. Not a great card overall. You know, if you parlayed all the favorites on this card, the best you can get is about plus 550 odds. So keep that in mind. Not the greatest card for betting, but we're going to try to nitpick here and see what spots we can cash on. Reminder, I do have my tracked plays for this card. There aren't many, but I do have some plays for this card strictly on the MMA, LOT, and Patreon page. Check the link in the description below for that. Not just for that, but also for the PFL fights that are kicking off very shortly as well as the Cage Warriors card, which is tomorrow morning. And I'll have a YouTube breakdown for you guys for that card as well in the next few hours. So just stay tuned to the YouTube channel. All right, let's get right into it. First matchup up, Jordan Oliver, minus 4,000 going up against Caleb Ramirez, who comes in at plus 1,600. Complete squash match here with Oliver having a tremendous wrestling background. I expect him to go out there and squash Ramirez within a round and get the quick finish here. But at minus 4,000, we don't parlay those types of odds around these parts. All right, next up, Greenwell coming in at plus 250, going up against Leslie Hernandez, who comes in at minus 300. I'm leaning Hernandez here as I believe she is the overall better fighter. She's the better striker, and her defensive grappling is good enough to stifle anything that Greenwell throws her way. But to play Hernandez at minus 300 after seeing what a 20-year-old was able to do to her on the Contender series this past season, I do have some bit of hesitancy in terms of having uber confidence in her here. But in terms of just stylistically, I think she is the better fighter here, and I expect her to get her hand raised on the scorecards. Next up, probably the fight that I'm looking forward to most on this entire card. We got Ansar Khamzaev coming in at minus 200, going up against Abasov, who comes in at plus 160. Khamzaev is a highly touted prospect who's still under 20 years old and trains out of Killcliff FC. He has very slick striking, but also a very powerful wrestling game, and he's going to be looking to implement that here against a judo black belt and Turkmenistani representative Abasov. Abasov trains out of American Top Team and brings in a clean 4-0 pro record. He also looks to utilize a grapple-heavy approach in most of his fights to try to get his opponents out of there. I do think Khamzaev has the higher potential and higher ceiling, but given the lack of experience he has compared to what Abasov has, I have some hesitancy in terms of playing him as the chalky favorite. I would not hate it or bat an eye at anybody looking to take the plus 160 on Abasov, who shows some solid potential himself, but I think Khamzaev is the better overall fighter here. It's just, can he overcome the experience advantage that Abasov will have? I'm still going to leave Khamzaev here, but I just can't play him at this number considering the points that I made for Abasov. Next up, Jamal Mavliudov going up against Jordan Tague, minus 170 on Jamal and plus 145 on Jordan. Fun fight here. Mavliudov, a 5-0 amateur fighter, also now 4-0 as a pro, finishing all but one of those and 4 of those by guillotine. He's lanky, has a flashy kicking game, and is often dealing with guys that want to take him to the ground, which is where he's been able to catch a lot of his opponents in guillotines. Tague is a strong wrestler who likes to utilize solid top pressure to ground and pound most of his opponents and keep them in bad spots. I believe Tague has done enough good work to try to implement solid submission defense, and I think from there he should be able to keep Jamal on some in uncomfortable positions, whether it's pushing him against the cage or dragging him to the ground. The only issue I have here is that I believe this is going to be the toughest fight of Tague's career, and Jamal definitely has a lot of threats, especially with that guillotine and his flashy striking approach. I'm going to have to pass here, but I do like the underdog, Jordan Tague, and I think that he can grind this fight out and win it on the scorecards. Next up, we have former LFA interim champion Cheyenne Bowers coming in at -800, going up against Elizabeth Rodriguez, who comes in at +550. I think Bowers is a very strong and solid prospect who probably should have won her last matchup, which was a unification bout against Shannon Clark. Clark even admitted in the post-fight interview that she thought Bowers deserved to win that matchup. Bowers normally utilizes her strength and physicality to wear her opponents down, but it's clear that her striking is improving at a very steady rate. Elizabeth Rodriguez made her LFA debut in her last matchup and pulled off a big-time upset over rising prospect Mariana Piccolo. Rodriguez trains alongside Alexa Grasso, and you can see some of the similarities in terms of their striking game, especially with how much she bounces around and utilizes her combination striking approach. But I think Bowers will be able to shut that down by utilizing her physicality and grappling advantage to keep Rodriguez in bad spots, grinding this fight out and winning it on the scorecards. But again, -800 is very tough to get behind, especially at this level of mixed martial arts. Next up, we got Nikita Kulshin coming in at -4,000, going up against Hudson Caliocane, who comes in at +1,600. No need to spend too much time on this matchup considering the squash match-ish nature. Kulshin obviously got tested a little bit more than people expected him to last time around, but he still got the job done, and I think he'll be able to make it look even easier here against Hudson, as I think he'll be able to get him out of there in under 1.5 rounds. So to get him or to get the under 2.5, roughly around that -140 range, I think is a blessing and something that a lot of people should be taking advantage of. Next up, Landry Ward coming in at -190, going up against Bryce Logan, who comes in at +165. It's been over a year since we've seen Ward compete, and that was a fight that put him on a 2-fight losing streak. Normally, he utilizes his long, lanky approach to touch up opponents from distance. And then on the flip side, with Bryce Logan, you're talking about a veteran who is now on a 2-fight winning streak, 2-0 as a boxer over the last year. His last MMA fight was actually against Mason Jones, who just recently re-signed with the UFC, and that was a tough fight where he couldn't deal with the pace and pressure that Jones was setting. Logan normally moves backwards a ton, but normally stays active enough with his calf kicking game and his improved boxing combinations to try to counter any opponent looking to take command of the cage. I think Ward could have some success from distance here, but I do like Logan's ability to implement that calf kick and meet opponents when they try to crash the pocket. I think Logan will have to try to drag this into the pocket a little bit more, as Ward will try to be sticking at distance and get to his striking. But I think we'll see Logan counter effectively, chew up the lead leg, and maybe even mix in a little bit of clinching against the cage to utilize his strength advantage. At +165, I think Logan is more than worthy of an underdog shot here. All right, co-main event where we got Mitchell McKee coming in at -4,000, going up against Greg Fischer, who comes in at +1,600. Now, McKee has an 8-0 record and is returning to the LFA cage after taking a quick detour in another promotion where he won by decision. Comes from a strong wrestling background, trains out of Killcliff FC, has the blessings of a legend like Robbie Lawler, who's often in his corner, even Logan Storley, who's very close with Mitchell McKee. He's fast, explosive, and powerful, and it seems like if his power doesn't translate early in rounds, he just gets to his grappling and slowly grinds opponents out and doesn't mind going to the scorecards if he needs to. He's going up against a BJJ black belt here, and Greg Fischer, who competed, I believe, a few times for the CFFC, but has also not competed since December of 2022. He's been traveling abroad a lot, spending a lot of time in Thailand and mixing up his training and trying to improve his striking game a little bit more. And he has some slick scrambles and transitions where he's been able to control a lot of guys in bad spots. I think McKee is the better scrambler. I think he's obviously the better wrestler. And I think we'll see a lot of jockeying for position in this matchup, which will likely see this fight actually end up hitting the scorecards. So the over 2.5 around that plus 160 line has my attention, but I still have to believe that the highly touted prospect Mitchell McKee should be able to control the majority of this matchup and win this decision. All right, main event time now, where we have the LFA lightweight title on the line, as we have undefeated Richie Lewis coming in at 6-0, going up against coming in at minus 1200, going up against Richie Miranda, who comes in at plus 750. These guys were scheduled to compete a few months back, but Lewis was forced to pull out of the matchup, and Miranda ended up taking a short notice fight and was able to pick up a decision victory. I believe that the wrestling advantage here of Lewis, who has over 200 plus collegiate matches to his name, and he's going to do a great job in terms of dictating the pace of this matchup. Miranda may be the slicker BJJ specialist, but I don't think that's going to count for much, as he's going to be the one on the defensive, as Lewis dictates the pace, utilizes his wrestling, and keeps Miranda on his back. This might be one of the more boring LFA main events that we've seen in a while, but I expect Lewis to dominate this matchup, Miranda to put up enough resistance to not get finished, and Lewis to win this fight on the scorecards, which is why I don't mind a little bit of that chalk on the over 3.5 in this fight. I expect it to go 25 minutes, and I think it will be with Lewis riding Miranda and getting a ton of top time and control, and still LFA lightweight champion Richie Lewis. There you guys go. Full LFA 207 breakdown there for you guys. I said I was going to be quick. I did get a little bit more in depth than I wanted to originally, but when I start rambling, I'm going to continue to ramble. Again, apologies for the lack of video quality or anything. I just want to get this audio out for you guys ASAP so you guys can get these breakdowns and make some bets if that's what you want to do. And yeah, good luck on your action tonight. I'll be back later this evening to break down the Cage Warriors card, which goes down Saturday morning/afternoon. So yeah, I'll see you for the Cage Warriors breakdowns in the next several hours. See you then. Peace.